Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on energy efficient buildings, the first event of the World Bank Knowledge Sharing Series on low carbon cities, a joint initiative of the World Bank Global Practices of Urban, Disaster Risk Management, Resilience and Land and Environment, and the Natural Resources and the Blue Economy. My name is Victor Mulas, and I am the team lead of the Tokyo Development Learning Center, which organizes this series. TDLC is a partnership between the World Bank and the government of Japan that serves as a global hub of Japanese and global urban development knowledge and technical expertise for practical operationalization. This event is part of a knowledge sharing series showcasing cutting-edge solutions and practices for achieving low carbon emission targets from leading cities, the private sector, and practitioners across the world. Today is the first event, and we will do more events following this one. Next one will be around the week of June 9, and it will be on low carbon approaches to solid waste management. In today's event on energy efficient buildings, we have an exciting lineup of speakers and topics, showcasing good practices and key trends in technology in energy efficient buildings, followed by a deep dive in city government initiatives toward low carbon agenda. Please let me start with some housekeeping announcements. This webinar offers English and Japanese simultaneous interpretation. The first session will be in English and the second one will be in Japanese. Please select the language you want by clicking the interpretation tool, which is the glove icon on the tool menu of Zoom that you have in the bottom of Zoom. Throughout the webinar, should you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat space, as we will have a Q&A at the end of each presentation. The TDLC chat master will bring your question to the speaker and moderator. And finally, please note that this event will be recorded and the recordings will be available for all in the TDLC website after the event. Now, let's get started with today's program. Today, we are very grateful to have Francis Ghesquiere, Practice Manager of the World Bank's Urban Disaster Risk Management, Resilience and Land Global Practice in the East Asia and Pacific region, to provide the opening remarks for this event and the overall series. Please allow me to invite Francis to the floor to give the opening remarks. Francis, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you everyone for joining us for this knowledge series on low carbon cities, where I think in this occasion we'll explore the role of energy efficient buildings in relation to carbon reduction, energy consumption, and ultimately achieving sustainable development. Now, I think it's very clear that cities will have an important role to play in the future of the world, but especially in trying to address climate change. Cities occupy only about 2% of land mass, but they consume about 80% of global energy resources and in fact produce close to or more sometimes than 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. To this, I think we need to add the fact that well, now we have about 50% of the world population living in cities. Will add about 2.5 billion to this number by 2050. And probably reach around 70 to 80% of the world population living in cities. So it is clear that increasing urban density, reaching out for more energy efficiency offers huge potential to address and to try to reduce CO2 emissions, but in fact also for offer huge opportunities to improve and reduce air pollution, not to mention simply the cost of running cities. So to me, the timing of this workshop couldn't be better, in particular as we come out, hopefully will come out soon, of this COVID crisis, where there will be important investment done in infrastructure and in trying to improve the livability of our environment in general. To me, energy efficient building are one of the key building blocks that will bring together infrastructure and green technology as we design for a sustainable future. Let me state that clearly, the purpose of this knowledge series is to share practical experience and emerging trends all around the world. First from Japan, of course, because we do this in Japan and we benefit from fantastic support from the government of Japan, but also from the public as well as the private sector, the academic sector, and from civic leader. So before anything, I want to thank the government of Japan through its support to the World Bank TDLC program that has made this event possible. I also would like to exchange my gratitude and appreciation to all of the speakers that will speak today. It was quite a feat to bring them all together in such short notice. And I think the lineup is quite impressive, and you will all appreciate the quality of the work that was invested in preparing for this workshop. In fact, the workshop has benefited from the expertise of two global practice of the World Bank, the urban disasters management and land practice, and the environment and blue economy global practice. I also want to thank all the representatives for these two global practice for the contribution to this webinar. To end, let me encourage everybody to participate actively and to take advantage of this learning opportunity to reflect on our own work and project in the month and years to come. As I said at the beginning, there is no future without sustainable cities, without cities that do not have as much carbon emission and without cities that have better air quality. So good luck for this seminar. I wish you all the best also in the future. And over to you, Victor.
Thank you very much, Francis. Really appreciate you opening this series. Now, let's move to our first session, the Mori Building case study. Mori Building is one of the largest urban developers in Japan, and this session will introduce the company's projects in energy-efficient buildings. The moderator for the session is Barjor Mehta, lead urban specialist at the World Bank, Urban Disaster Risk Management, Resilience and Land Global Practice. He's based in Singapore, and he has close to 40 years of experience working on a wide range of aspects on the urban sector across the world. I would now like to invite Barjor to share his video and audio and start the moderation of this session. Barjor, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And I apologize for the video quality because I have had some problems with my computer, so I'm on my phone. But let me thank Madame Mariko Murata. She comes to us from the Mori buildings, and she comes from the Urban Planning and Development Division, Project Planning Department of the Environmental Promotion Unit and Town Management Division, and the Park Management Unit of Mori Buildings. She has been with Mori for quite some years, since 2012. And she currently is responsible for overseeing the initiative for environment and greenery, which is one of the company's urban development missions. And she is in charge of promoting the acquisition of LEED and WELL, which are the energy efficiency labels, environmental certifications for urban development projects. She also teaches, and she is working in the Park Management Unit, which is responsible for planning, promoting public spaces with a focus on greenery in new projects. So we have a very enlightened speaker. And so with that, may I invite Murata-san to start her presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Barjor-san. This is Mariko Murata from Mori Building. So I would like to start my presentation first. So let me share the screen here. Okay, so let me start my presentation regarding Mori Building case study. And my name is Mariko Murata. And this is our corporate profile. Our company name is Mori Building, and this is one of the largest urban developer and located in Tokyo. Our headquarters is in Tokyo, in the building of our major project, Roppongi Hills. And we founded on 1959. And our business scope is mainly urban development, and we are doing the real estate leasing and management and operating some facilities as well. and the number of employees is 1,500, and the building for lease is 96, and the tenants are leasing our building is 2,096. And this is our major project, and we firstly started with Nishishimbashi second Mori Building on the left side, which is completed on 1957, and the second thing is Arc Hills. This is the first private sector large city development, and this is a complex of office building and a residential building and a music hall in one complex space. And the another thing is Roppongi Hills, where our headquarters is, and here there's the office building and residential building as well, and we have a global project as well in Shanghai in China. We have a Shanghai World Financial Center, and in Jakarta in Indonesia, we are now currently the construction is undergoing for a Jakarta office tower project. And this is our domestic project is located. This is a map, and you can see this is a Tokyo map, and you can see this Tokyo Tower symbol here. This is one of the Tokyo's symbol, and this is not our property though. And our property is around here. And on the left side, you can see Roppongi Hills. This is where our headquarters is. And on the middle part, you can see there's the Arc Hills area, which is our first private sector large scale complex. And on the right side, there's a Toranomon Hills area, and this is under construction, but the main Toranomon Hills Mori Tower and Toranomon Hills Business Tower next door is now completed, and the other two towers will be completed in 2023. And in the middle center of this map, you can see Toranomon Azabudai project, which is newly constructed, and I will introduce you later on. And as you can see, all the projects are so gathered in one areas. And I would like to introduce our philosophy of urban development, and this is called Vertical Garden City, and which combines many city facilities into one high-rise building, so that we minimize the footprint of building on the ground, so we can create more greenery spaces and many walkable streets on the ground level. And we also use the basement level as well for transport, and we'll set the facility that does not need sunlight, like movie theater and concert hall, into the basement as well, and so that we will fully be able to use the ground level and open it for people. And we have three missions when developing the urban cities. First of all, one is safety and security. As you know, in Japan, there's so many earthquakes. It frequently happens. So we have to make the city firm for earthquake. And also we have to do some drills for emergency as well. And the second one in environment and greenery, and I will talk you later on about these details. And another thing is art and culture, and we'll put some museum and some art into the city so that many people can see and touch their new arts in their lifestyles. And this is our three missions when we cultivate the city. And this slide shows the impact for the environment when we develop in this kind of city, and compared to the urban area A, which is so densely and overcrowded and flat area with so small blocks. And when we develop it into urban area B, such like this kind of vertical garden city, as our major project was Roppongi Hills and Arc Hills and the another Toranomon Azabudai project. And the data says that coexistence with nature, it means the cover ratio of the greenery for the area that will rise more than 30%. And reducing our carbon footprint way, yes, we can combine many facility into the building, and we'll put the one big energy conserving equipment, which is so efficient. So it allows us to reduce 40% per square meters of carbon footprints. And in the perspective of recycling resources, yes, and with doing this kind of development, we can prolong the life cycle of the building itself, and also we can collect the things like waste into one building so that we can efficiently put them into the recycling system, and also we can use the water resource in the building more efficiently. And the point for thinking about the conserving energy in the office building, as the graph here shows, you can see the blue area, it shows the common area, and the pink area, it shows the leased area. Is the office building, there's you can see more than 60% the energy usage is consumption is at the leased areas. So we have to focus this to conserving whole building's energy saving. Yes, of course, we do some strategy to common areas as well, but we have to focus on the leased area to make it more efficient. And in that meaning, we developed a one energy web system, which is open for every tenant that in the leasing area, and which shows the energy usage and the energy trend. And this green graph shows the monthly trend, and they can compare it to the last year or last month is how was the energy usage is. And on the right side, there's a by floor usage trend. And on the lower area, you can see the orange graph. The orange shows the yesterday's data, and the blue one shows the today's data is hourly usage. So we can check our usage today from yesterday and how was the trend changes. And on the right bottom, you can see there's a nighttime ratio. And in here, they can see there has been the light turning on during the midnight, or there has been the outlet that we can pull out before we going back to our home. So this website shows the energy trends so detail in the detail, so that allows the tenants to make their energy conserving strategy more like specifically. And this website can be used as a communication tool between tenants and Mori Building as an owner and tenant conversation. And not only shows the energy usage, we directly control the energy usage in the tenant's area when the tenant allows. And this is called a demand responding system in tenant occupied space. So once the tenant allows us to control their energy usage, when the building finds there should be a demand peak of electricity, and we will going to control the air condition system and will lower the lights in the tenant office leasing space. Yes, and this is what we have done for the operating buildings, and gather this knowledge, and with mature techniques, we are going to develop a new city in Tokyo as well. And this is Toranomon Azabudai project. This is an image picture. It's not completed yet. And you can see there's a big building on the right side, and there's two other buildings. It is a residential building as well. This is the project site. And compared to our major project, Roppongi Hills, this Toranomon Azabudai project is much more larger than Roppongi Hills. So this will have so many impact on the Tokyo city. And this is the area map. It's on the right middle of this map. The concept is that a modern urban village, which contains both the green and wellness for people. And yes, here we did the totally opposite procedure for planning. We firstly set the central greenery plaza in the area, and then we put the office building and residential building, any other functions in the area. So this is the totally opposite approach for planning. And with that, we could create more than 24,000 greenery on this whole area. And this is a central plaza that will be 6,000 square meters. And this is the multifunctional complex. It means that there's a restaurant and shop, and there's a walkable street as well. And this is the section, and on the middle, we can see there's an office building, and there on the top side is a residence, and then the bottom there's a retail facilities, and the other two building on the left side is a residential building with where contains a hotel. And on the right side of the A district, the main building, there's a central square, and with the retail facilities on the ground level as well. And we connect with 2 metro stations with this project. And this is the efforts that we have done that we're going to do in this project, as we know that we have so responsible for environment when we develop this urban project. So we supply energy in an efficient manner. We put the energy center into the middle of the site, and will supply all the energy from here. And there's a combined and mixed facility here, so the energy demand can be so average, and then we can put the efficient energy equipment for them. And all the electricity supplied here, that will be a renewable energy. So all the events held here, and all the office working, and all the living in the apartment flats, that could be done by a renewable energy. Yes, and the greenery, as I mentioned. And yes, we use the effective use of water resources as well. We use the gray water from apartments into office building toilet flushing water. And with this effort, we could earn the LEED and D certification level, and we get the highest level of platinum level in planning process. Yes, and so this is a LEED and D pre-certification awarded in platinum level. And in the office building, we are also achieved WELL building standard level as well. And this awarded a healthy building. And we will going through with the recycling system with tenants here as well. We ask all the tenants to separate the waste before they put them into the trash bins, so that we can collect them correctly and put them in the recycle system. And yes, with this effort, we could receive subsidy from the government, and that is for a sustainable leading business in CO2 saving building in Toranomon Azabtai. And also we firstly issue the green bond for this project, and we received the investment statement more than 100 investors. This is the largest number in the history of domestic ESG bond. So yes, this is my last slide, and I'm so happy for discussing about this and urban development, and look for how to lower the impacts for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Murata-san. This is an excellent presentation, and sorry that we've had to rush you because we have a slightly compressed amount of time. There are two very interesting parts that you mentioned that seem to us as from the World Bank side. One is that when you design a building or a complex, you take into consideration all the design considerations, and that's very encouraging. But on the other side, once you have a set of tenants, you also have a system to work with them to reduce their energy use. But the question is, what is the incentive for them, for the tenants, or for you as a developer, that you would take on this as a mission?
Yes, the incentive for them is recently we think the tenants will need the more environmental efficient office. So this is the building itself is so much ecological. That means it has a attract for the tenants. So I mean, the high performance building are likely to be selected by tenants, and these days, though, the tenants would like, we're really happy to be in the kind of building, and the owners are so happy for that we can make this building occupied by the tenants that are also aiming the same goals.
Okay, so then on the chat, the other issue is when you deal. So, is there anything that is from the Tokyo government, from the government of Tokyo municipal government? Are there requirements that all buildings of a certain type have to achieve a certain level of energy efficiency, and what are those kinds of rules that make developers like you follow them?
Yes, yes, as you said, there's a cap and trading system in Tokyo City, and there's an obligation for reducing CO2 emission for this kind of big building from Tokyo government. And we will, yes, we follow them, and we could achieve the obligation. And there is a rule that when the building performance is so much high and it is so efficient and it's so, and that could be awarded top level building level from the Tokyo government, and they obligate the obligation get half. So when the building efficiency very quite good, the Tokyo governance gave us the level, which is top level building, and so that we can reduce the obligation as well. And when we get the lower than the obligation, we can have the volume to sell to the another building who could not achieve the obligation, and that is a cap and trade system. And at this moment, we use this reducing volume for the Olympic donation. So the Olympic will run with our yes, partly run by our CO2 reducing volumes.
And so just one last question from my side, and then I will see if there are other questions from the so how well is the Tokyo's cap and trade program at a city level? It's a unique program. How is it going, and how do big developers like you, how have you big developers reacted to this cap and trade program?
Yes, it is currently in the situation that mainly most of the buildings can already reach the obligation, so many one has the volume to sell, and this is because this cap and trade system started before the huge earthquake that for Fukushima, and after that the whole entire Japan level we reduced the energy usage. So the Tokyo is part of the Japan, so most of the building has lowered their energy usage after the earthquake. So at this point, most of all the building has the volume to sell, and nobody
to buy.
Nobody to buy at this moment. But I believe that the government said they will tighten the target for reducing carbon into neutral in the future. So this system going to work more and more efficiently in the next couple of decades.
Thank you. Now I have two questions from the participants. One is that, how do you secure the resilience of some builds, for some types of disasters such as large earthquakes, and which are, because you are in a very earthquake prone area, and you are also building in the central area in Tokyo, and how can you make these affordable for people to follow the resilience? Because we are part of a resilience practice, and there are a lot of people who want to understand how do resilience and energy efficiency, if any, there are any connections.
Yes, yes. For in the perspective of resiliency, we build a building with a like earthquake resilient firm building, and for the first point, and after that we put the cogeneration system in the case of Roppongi Hills, and so that we can cogenerate electricity by ourselves, and in emergency occurs we can supply it to the the city and even to the other district as well. And yes, this cogeneration system is running with the gas system, which is so strong. It's in the below in the basement, and the pipe is so strong so that we can control it whenever the earthquake is occurred. And we have another backup for like using oil as well. So in the resilient, we have to prepare it for gas and oil. But on the other hand, we have to focus on the renewable energy as well. So this is a difficult point, though we are now using our energy certification, like non-fossil energy certification, and then we can switch into the renewable energy and can hand it to the tenants.
Thank you. There's another question from the participants, and that is, how would you evaluate and assess the carbon emissions from raw material procurement to each consumer level emissions? So, I mean, how do you link it, the production of the materials that you use, and how does that account into your, into your design process or into your energy management process?
Yes, this is a difficult point when building the building, and we use a huge materials for building when doing the construction. And yes, we're doing the reducing process and like seeing the plan and seeing the how we have to use the material. And for this process, we use the LEED certification to check them, which is a global level for show the how performance for this material usage is good or not. So we put our, and in the Stranomo Azabudai project, we could switch them to the LEED certification level.
Thank you. There is I'm going to read the Japanese translation of a question that what kind of power generator, Mori Building's private power generator, are you currently using? Because that makes a very big difference at the incoming energy side.
Yes, we're using the engine turbo system, and it is from another industry, and we have a plant in the basement of our building, and there's an operator, and which is our company, which is inside our company. And yes, this is how we use it.
Okay. Now, and another question from the participants in Tokyo, are there obligations for individuals or tenants to limit their energy usage? And is there an energy pricing scheme that incentivizes people to limit their consumption?
Yes, at this moment, there's no obligation for tenants at this moment, but there's a obligation for tenants to, obligation of the number or the targets at this moment, but there's an obligation for tenants to cooperate with the building owner. It is clearly written in the cap and trade system. So tenants, the large tenant have to show their energy strategy, and we will attempt it, and then we'll send it to the government to check it.
I see. So if I get it correctly, the cap and trade is not just with the large developers or the building owners, but it also ties in some way with all the tenants as well. Is that correct?
Yes, and not all the tenants. It's for a larger tenant, though. Yes, that's basically yes.
Okay. Then one last question also from the participants is that you track the energy consumption of tenants, but are there, during this COVID time, are there any changes in energy consumption because of the situation? And then do you expect any changes in tenants' needs after the COVID? So essentially, will you have a very different reality in your building occupancy because of COVID? Are you seeing it now, and do you expect some more changes in the future?
Yes, and at this moment, we could see some energy reduction due to the COVID, as there's a fewer and fewer office workers come to the office building at this moment. But we believe that in the future we also need office building. However, we have to change our spaces. Like we have to, when 100 people would like to work in same area, we have to spread the area more like a larger one for them to safely work in the office. So in that meaning, we are not sure how the energy consumption goes. However, there should be some different trend that would be going.
Okay. So I thank you very much, Murata-san. This was very engaging and very informative. And we still have a few minutes. So if any participants have any questions, could you please type them in? Otherwise, we would go to the next session and learn from Yokohama. So please go ahead. I'll give you a few seconds to type out your questions if you have any. Okay, I think there are no more questions on this session. So let me thank Murata-san, and I'll hand it over to Victor to see how we could go into the next session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barger. Thank you so much, Murata-san. I think it was a very insightful session, and we all learned a lot, specifically about the case of Mori and these cutting-edge solutions to developing energy-efficient buildings to achieve the low carbon agenda. I could feel the interest of the session with all the questions and the engagement that we had, so that was fantastic. And now we shift gears and we go to the public sector because the next session will introduce the lessons and experience of the City of Yokohama. The moderator of this session is Haruka Mikimoto. She is an operations officer at the World Bank at TDLC. And Haruka is leading the TDLC's operational support activities and works on projects across the regions. I would like now to invite Haruka to share her video and audio. And after she does that, Haruka, the floor is yours to moderate the next session.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much, Francis, Victor, and thank you, Borjo and Murata-san, for this excellent session. That was very crisp, too short. We really enjoyed, so thank you so much. The next session today is a deep diving into the low carbon cities initiatives with a focus on energy efficient building by one of our TDLC city partnership program cities, City of Yokohama. I'm very delighted to welcome Mr. Shuhei Okuno. Mr. Okuno, he is a Deputy Director General, Climate Change Policy Headquarters at City of Yokohama. Welcome, Okuno-san. それでは皆さん、ここからは、Now I'd like to change the language to Japanese. Okuno-san, thank you very much. Yes, from Yokohama City Climate Change Headquarters, I am Okuno. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. From you, we would like you to have a Zero Carbon Yokohama 2050 presentation. Thank you very much for your acceptance. In this presentation, you are going to talk about the history and the plan for the future. And in the latter half of this session, we'll be focusing on energy saving buildings. There is ample time for you to make presentations. So over to you, Okuno-san. Can you see my screen? I am Okuno from Yokohama City, City of Yokohama. Okuno-san, please hold on. It takes a bit of a time for the screen to change over to the slide. So once we see the screen, can you see my screen? Yes. So can you enlarge the slide for the presentation mode? Yes, let's get started. May I? Yes, please. Zero Carbon Yokohama. This is the target or
Yokohama City's climate change measures based on the plan until 2050. I'd like to talk about this, including our policies. In Yokohama City, 3.7 million people live, which is a huge city. And in the coastal area, there is a lot of industrial area with a lot of factories. So there is a lot of greenhouse gas emission from Yokohama City. And as I said, there is a plan by 2050, and decarbonization is our target. And we are running the Yokohama City in accordance with that plan. And in here, there's mitigation plan, but it's not just that. Japan is prone to a lot of these natural disasters, especially more recently. We've experienced a lot of heavy rains or collapse of cliffs or landslides. So we need to have adaptation plans as well as mitigation. And more specifically, for mitigation plans, exactly how we can achieve zero emission. So this is a roadmap to achieve that. First of all, in 2013, we have set this year as a base year. So by 2050, compared to 2013, the energy consumption in the city will have to be about halved. 253 petajoule was the consumption for 2013, and that will be reduced to 129. In other words, energy saving will have to be done. And next, as you can see from the blue portion, this is the power or electricity consumption, and yellow is the energy used for other purposes than electricity. So we have to increase the blue portion, or electrification should be promoted, and the whole electricity should be supplied by renewable energy. And if you can take a look at 2050, the horizontal stripe and vertical stripe portions are there. In Yokohama City, there is a lot of energy consumption. And so renewable energy, even if we produce renewable energy in the Yokohama City, we can only cover 8% of the total consumption required. That's what we have learned from our trial calculation. And so the remaining 92% will have to be provided from outside the city as electricity. Otherwise, we'll not be able to achieve 100% renewable energy to cover the electricity. And thirdly, if there is an impossibility to do the electrification like gas usage or LNG, the diverse energy uses, energy resources, and we have to make sure that GHGs will not be generated from these, and there's a technological development underway. So we have to do innovation to prevent greenhouse gas from being emitted. So that's the reality of Yokohama City. I said that we cannot cover the whole consumption of Yokohama City from within. So there's a Tohoku area, the northern part of Japan, which has a high potential for renewable energy, which is indicated in blue in this map. So we are collaborating with those cities in the remote area, distant from Yokohama City, to support us with the supply. So in 2011, there is a huge tsunami disaster in Tohoku area. As they rebuild their cities, they are also providing the extra power to Yokohama City. So there's a win-win situation, and we are collaborating with about 13 such cities for them to provide us with electricity. And this is one of them. One of the towns the mayor, well, on an online basis, has signed the agreement of the collaboration with one city. But more recently, it's not just supply of renewable energy, but people-to-people interactions or some other product exchanges or trade are also part of the exchanges between those cities and our city. To give you one example, this is a city hall of Yokohama City. Last year, it was newly built, and renewable energy 100% was realized already in this building. And from the waste incineration plant, there is power generated, and that power is being used for this building. And also, the shortage part, we will purchase power from outside. And also, we use solar power, and there are other power facilities. But the green part is a renewable energy, and yellow is a non-renewable energy. So the non-renewable energy portion needs to be priced with environmental values so that we can achieve 100% renewable energy. And this is one of the characteristics of Yokohama City. In various towns, there are smart city projects ongoing. Companies with high technologies are gathered in Yokohama City to achieve zero carbon in Yokohama City. They are helping us with this achievement. And currently, there are 34 such companies, if I remember correctly. Prestigious major manufacturers with their own technologies are using the field of Yokohama City to achieve zero carbon. One specific example, I said that Japan is prone to disasters, including earthquakes and typhoon. And 2 years ago, there was a typhoon. It was not the one that hit Yokohama, but there was a blackout in that disaster-hit area. And in Yokohama, the distributed power was installed with a storage battery. We call this virtual power plant. This is a small-scale installation, but those independent power sources need to be increased. And that would be quite helpful in disaster-prone country like Japan. And in normal time, you can also sync with supply-demand balance of the grid, and generator with a lot of CO2 generation doesn't have to be run. And in that way, we can contribute to reduction of CO2. And Nissan Motor is located in Yokohama City, and one of the products of Nissan is electric vehicles. And we will increase EVs from Nissan or use EVs in time of disasters so that we can take power from EVs during disaster. That's one of the collaborations that we do. And as you know, last week, Prime Minister Suga of Japan and President Biden of the US, in order to lead the climate change actions, reached partnership between the two countries, and they did this summit and reached agreement. And Yokohama City is also trying to aim for even more stretched target. So 46% emission reduction by 2050 is Japan's target, and we are trying to come up with something equivalent in Yokohama City. Last but not least, it's not just the energy, but the World Bank in various cities around the world are helping with the projects of smart city. And I think World Bank is at the forefront in this effort. And as we consider this, of course, keywords include carbon neutral city. This is one of the great trends in the world. And this is something that is essential, and this is a must. And also circular economy needs to be materialized. And the city that can realize circular economy, in other words, this will increase importance. You don't generate waste, and you can make the economy more sustainable through this effort. And that sort of cities are going to be required. And then the next is resilient cities, especially in Japan and in the rest of Asia. There are a lot of natural disasters. So if you consider infrastructure of the city or town, you have to make the city or town resilient to disasters. And more recently, infectious diseases are expanding, and the assignment or allocation of the cities that used to be efficient in a very dense manner will have to be changed so that we can make use of IT, so that we will have more distributed type of city. I think that will take on more importance. So including those, last keyword is the city where people will consider or keep considering and designing the city as they grow. The people have to grow, and that will also constitute a major part of town building going forward. And so in that sense, the World Bank sharing knowledge is something that we can empathize. And in this current environment, what sort of town will be required will have to be reimagined again by everybody. And Yokohama City wants to contribute to the town building around the world, and would like to enhance our collaboration with World Bank. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Okuno-san. Thank you very much. There are a lot of questions that we want to ask you. Thank you, Okuno-san. There are some of the slides as a takeaway. One point you mentioned, by 2050, in the public energy, to be able to make a reuse of that energy, because energy is difficult to be produced, where to maximize the potential. And also in the rural area, that was linked as well, where the non-energy area, because of the COVID-19 issue, between the cities and the rural area, such as, and also suburbs, how it should be connected and how it should coexist. And that is something important points for that discussion, I think. And also, last year, the new Yokohama City building that was just being built, I wanted to go there, but because of the COVID-19, I couldn't go there, but I wish I could go there soon with the waste processing facilities, exhaust heat, but also utilized, and also the elementary schools using the solar power generations, and to be able to store the energy as well. Toward the end of the slide, in the disaster, you mentioned about the strengthening the against the and carbon neutral for the today's topic. However, also for the against this disaster, because of the, for sure, that is one of the topic that we need to address. As you mentioned, the cycling economy, and also resilience and the strengths, and also most in this policy recommendations have been to human-centered city building or urban planning. That is the area that we are also working on. But for today, that is a low-carbon discussion. But that is the area that you have mentioned as well. Also in the World Bank, as it has been mentioned, we work with the different countries to support their city development, urban development by the World Bank. For example, in Southeast Asia, we are proceeding with the city and urban development. In a zero-carbon city to be built is the most demanded and required in the future. And fortunately, in this session, originally, we had the 20 minutes Q&A was planned because we have the additional 4 minutes. So now we have enough discussion we could do. So first of all, in this energy saving, before going to the energy saving, from the there are questions that we have received in Yokohama City carbon neutral scenario, important points and we'd like to ask about the macro viewpoint first. And thank you. In the World Bank, in the spirit that have been supported, in the verse you have shared the important directions in the from the local municipality government perspective. In the entire region, you want to think of them. There are many different players involved, so it's not easy to work on that, and many different interests. But if you think of the who should be the responsible for achieving zero carbon in the city is the important point. And that is in that area, and the Yokohama City and the industrial cities, in the suburb area. In the suburbs, we also have the rural areas as well. And that is by 2050, in the decarbon, it may not be easy. But in that case, one point is by making the declaration is very important. Is it maybe the egg first or chicken first? Do we accumulate all these efforts and decarbonizing? We have to think of this in a backcast. Otherwise, the Earth and globe will go down. So, as a municipality, municipality government have to address that. In Asian countries, there are countries who have not declared the statement and commitment on decarbonization yet. So I think World Bank can perhaps, I recommend and persuade those countries and to increase the cities and local governments to increase and to build this smart city. And that is important action, I think. And for the current situation to be analyzed, and the roadmap to be an action plan to be built to make the roadmap is very important because technology is in shortage.
There are unclear parts or parts that cannot be anticipated, but the analysis is important, as you saw in the graph. Then how you can procure the resources once you decide on the policies. What sort of systems should be created? And what players we would like to attract to the city of Yokohama to expand renewable energy. So the specific way of doing this and searching for the players, that is something that we need to do. And more recently, the companies are acting on their own in this regard, but the local governments have to take the leadership and show the examples by themselves so that they can show that 100% renewable energy is possible. And that is going to be very important to the city residents and the community as well. Thank you very much. So whether you set the targets first, and when you set the targets, how you can accumulate the numbers to reach one goal. And that is something that other local governments in Japan are interested in, and also the local governments in the rest of Asia as well. So I'd like to ask about that later. Now, the next question, you are going to assume decarbonized society and creating sustainable cities. That's the era that we are in. But if you look at existing mega cities like Tokyo that I live in, or City of Yokohama for that matter, there are cities with GHG emission in large volume. So it's very difficult to achieve decarbonization. So when you translate this into actual practice of running the city, what would be the important points? Well, I don't think we have all the answers, but you also need to respond to infectious diseases as well. And this is something that everyone has to consider. And in my last slide, as I said, decarbonized city, circular economy, and distributed type of cities. But I think this is true with Tokyo, but what each of the individual resources have high technology and technological development, but you've already built a city with such a dense population, and it will be really difficult to decarbonize the whole city because energy consumption is very huge. And so you have to take the balance between the production of energy and the consumption of energy by that particular city. So if you look at the world capitals, such as Jakarta or Beijing, they are all quite dense, and decarbonization is really challenging in those cities. So there is a possibility of power source development, and if you look at the power, the potential and the potential of consumption, you have to hit the right balance and then go through the distribution of power, taking advantage of IT or digitalization. I think this would be important, including the responses to COVID-19. So it's not a dense city, but you have to create the space. And then you can achieve decarbonization and circular economy. And if things are distributed at the time of emergency or disaster, you can have more resilience in the city. I think you can hit a sweet spot somewhere in each of the cities. Thank you. At TDLC of World Bank, the Barjo has been also coming to Tokyo, and we are having training programs, and developing countries are represented that World Bank is providing loans to. And what's surprising is that it is dense, but hygiene or very easy to live in. And so it's a really delicate matter, even with the COVID-19 as well. But the city of Yokohama, which is quite large, so the high density and distribution, you are trying to hit the right balance. I think that is quite interesting. The denser you become, then the wastewater and waste issues are also quite heavy. And so the optimum population level for that particular city have to be in harmony with the environment and economic development. And that sort of population lot should be sought and found.
Thank you. Now, next question. That's a question we have already received. I have several questions from myself. And when you have the new economic growth, when you talk about this, in the 20th century, in the second half of the 20th century, the new economic development may be different from the one in the past. For example, reliability and also nature environment is important more and more. And also urban cities with natural environment. And that is the image I have on that. So it's a low carbon city, and to make this possible, from the municipal government's perspective, local government's perspective, what do you think of this to achieve the low carbon city? That's a very difficult question, I think. Thank you for your question. Well, the biggest important point, I think, the best important point is a lot of different knowledge will be aggregated, and there are many different players are there with the policy of the public sector administration. So, of course, not if we have only the administration government is making efforts, it's not going to be a good city. However, we need to have the good balanced know-hows, working with cooperating with the players and companies, and to have them participate in town planning and city creating. And of course, in that region, the citizens, what citizens can do, of course, there may be things that citizens cannot do. For example, selecting and the of the garbage or waste, we cannot do only by the municipal government, but rather something that need to be done by citizens and people to make it more ecological. Also, in each of the person, not only just by different way of thinking by different people, but rather I think we need to exchange more communication and to exchange information and to be able to make the discussion. And if such a platform exists, that would be nice. But of course, with the bigger and bigger the city is, and the information exchange is getting more and more difficult. So with certain size of the city in that communities and more smaller area, we need to think of this by the people who live there. And also to think of this in a wider area, we have the Asia Smart City Conference, which also World Bank members also participate. We do that every year. So with these different areas, wider area players, and also exchange between the cities is going to be important to study each other about the optimizing the best way of creating this. And with that, to share the information and then inherit into the next generation. And that is a very important point, I think. With such a mechanism, unless we have such a mechanism in that place, even if you make a bigger towns or city, then things may not go well if we don't have such a discussion and forums to be able to do that. For the participants, I have received several questions from the participants, so I will go into the questions. But for the Okuno-san's, there are already some of the comments are already some of the hinting on those type of questions as well. Now, in Yokohama, when I think of Yokohama, since as a person who live in Yokohama, as you mentioned, the citizen participation and to do the co-creation has been worked on for a long time, and using some of the existing platform and also working with the companies may be useful also for this purpose as well. You mentioned about some of the automobile companies' name as well for the low carbon and smart city creating, and to how do you effectively utilize the working with the companies, and if there's any lesson learned, I would like to know about that. Well, as in the example I mentioned before, even smart city project in many advanced technology, which is owned and held by the companies, and they provide the technologies, and they can also do their commercial operation as a business, and in Yokohama, and to create that. So there'll be a win-win relationship with the companies, with the Yokohama city, so that the many different companies would gather in Yokohama.
Also, originally, the public and private sector collaboration, or the government and companies, will have equal footing to have exchanges. We have the contact point, a platform, co-creation department has been set in Yokohama City to be a contact point for that, so that we can pick up the voices from the private sector at any time. It is important for us, and it is a learning experience for us, so that those relationships have been sought for quite some time at Yokohama City. So I think that is some of the things that is working for us. And what has come out of this is a whiteboard project. Yokohama technologies and expertise are being used in the private-public sector collaboration, contributing to the creation of towns around the world. Of course, the companies located in Yokohama City have excellent technologies, and City of Yokohama have accumulated expertise and dialogues with the city's residents and communities, and that expertise for town building, together with the technologies of companies, will be able to contribute to the town building around the world. So those accumulated projects and work has helped create and build City of Yokohama. Thank you very much. Now, I am now looking at the chat for Q's questions. And also, I'd like to ask about the details of the buildings. And the intention behind this question is that, as asked by one of the staff members of World Bank, I think energy saving target is quite stretched goal, ambitious goal, and you just build up the energy savings in individual part to reach that target. So when you do so, the local governments in other parts of Japan and city practitioners and World Bank staff members, they have a high interest in the building energy saving. So you have to first build the new buildings that satisfy such high ambitious goals. And also, at the same time, retrofitting of existing buildings is required, especially in Japan, because of aging. The infrastructure in cities will have to be improved. This is a very difficult question, but opportunities as well. So financing burden and environmental load are getting larger. So it's not just buildings, but how you can plan for energy saving for the assets and how you can do the energy saving projects in practice. Well, let me go back to the slide. Let's take a look. Take your time. We still have 8 minutes to go. First of all, at this moment, this is the background information. Both the national government and City of Yokohama, for the private residents, there is no this jurisdiction to regulate them. There is no law, and the assets and properties that are owned by the private individuals are free for them under Constitution. So there is no imposition possible from any of the governments, local or national. But 2050, decarbonization in 2050 has been declared by Japan, and energy saving and renewable energy expansion in buildings plays an important role. That is the realization that we have. So including the amendments to the laws, how you can create energy saving homes like solar panel installation made mandatory. That possibility is being discussed as a national debate. And once this becomes a reality, then the city of Yokohama will also follow suit. And in addition, we may come up with some system to support the residents of the city. So this is the time that we are now in. But without such regulations, what we have done so far is, as you see on the screen, ESCO project, or Energy Service Company Operation project. And since 2003, we have been working on this, and especially the facilities with high potential for saving is something that we have applied this one, but this is just a request basis, not mandatory.
So it is more than 7,000 square meters or more, and more than 10 years after completion. Those are the target for this selection criteria to do the energy saving activity and energy efficient activities. As you can see, using two methods, and to utilize the private sector investment and also some of the public sector investment to be returned or loaned and repaid later. But as you can see, we have introduced this in 29 facilities until today. But it is not really expanding in a revolutionized way. No. As you can see, in all of the buildings, the energy saving precision is getting higher. So the reduction buffer, or the area where that we can do the more energy reduction, is becoming less and less because it's already highly efficient. So the target building is much becoming less and less. So with the introduction of the renewable energy, we have to expand this type of support scheme more, and that is going to be more important in the future. And also, the other method is, this is the in the building, in the residence, and also not non-residential and residential. The subsidy scheme is shown here. For 2,000 square meters or larger, and large scale, and medium scale, and small scale. As you can see on the right-hand side, with these, how we would start our support. And there are many things, and also ZEH, Net Zero Energy House, and also eco-renovation of housing subsidy system. Not the newly built, but when they renovate the house, then to increase the insulating and thermal performance can be increased, and that will be supported by Yokohama's city government. Of course, Yokohama's financial resource is not that abundant, so with this investment, the numbers of investment may be limited. So that is such a request base to do the expansion of the renewable energy and energy efficiency, but also with the countries, also with the revision of the law, we would have the more bold improvement of the buildings and some of the things that can be done. So, for example, in other Asian countries, if there's some initiatives in other Asian countries, it's not just technology, but rather you need to have the good working system and scheme need to be important, important to actually achieve this. So that is the some brief explanation of what I think about this issue. Thank you very much, Okuno-san. And now there are 3 or 4 questions. There are 2 questions. Perhaps I think some of the questions has been already answered. In the next 2 minutes, elevator pitch. I'd like to ask you a very fast pitch answer. NDC, where the UNFCCC, there's a COP, and each country, how they are working to reduce this. For this NDC, how does Yokohama report its emission reduction to the national government, and how does the national government take the city's reductions in their NDCs? So between the relationship between the central government and also the Yokohama City local governments. Well, obviously, in the local governments, we are chosen, aiming to become the city where to be chosen from globally as well. In Japan, 46% was the last week that we have publicly mentioned to be able to reduce that. But that's a different situation from one country to another. But so to the central government, but also working with the other countries and with the cooperation and collaboration. And the cities are very important because to be able to, not just the target held by the central government, but rather to be able to achieve the even higher goals. And that is the stance in each country's situation. I'm sure there will be some positions and stance being held by each country, but where it's people being worked on that, how do you have the higher desire to work on the higher target is going to become very important in the future.
Okuno-san, thank you very much for today. There are several questions that we were not able to pick up, like TDLC, partnership cities. Other than those cities, are they TDLC working with those? I'd like to answer those questions in the closing remarks. So the positioning of the local governments in low carbon world is interesting. It's not that something that you do. You have to do something that has been told by the national government, but the cities are coming up with their own stretched goals. And even if there are no systems in place, you are working on this voluntarily, which is quite encouraging. And as mega cities, there are things that we can do. Obviously, there are a lot of things that the national government can do. So you have to do hand in hand. Local sites, local governments, and national government, and the private sector, everybody has to work together. And as one of the members of the public, I would like to also consider more. That's what I've learned. So this concludes the session. Back to you, Victor.
Thank you, Haruka, and thank you, Okuno-san, for this deep dive on City of Yokohama's low carbon cities initiatives, with, of course, a focus on energy efficient buildings, the topic of the day. We are very honored to have Yokohama as a member of TDLC City Partnership Program, and we are very grateful for your participation in this event today. So today we have learned from practices and experiences from both private sector and public sector in developing energy efficient buildings towards the low carbon agenda, which give us an overall picture of how these approaches can be applied and also combined. We are very thankful for the participation of both speakers. And now I would like to invite Barjor back again to the stage to share some of his reflections on the discussions we have been having today. Let me please invite Barjor. Barjor, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I truly appreciated listening to both the speakers. And I think the balance between the private sector and a city of the size and stature of Yokohama is very interesting. So for us at the World Bank, the lessons that I think we should be taking out from this is that to achieve the low carbon targets or to achieve carbon neutrality, it's very important that we as the World Bank and others work on the regulatory and the statutory mechanisms, because that is from where all the other actions follow. The second lesson that I took forward is that then the private sector has to be an equal partner, or has to see this as in their interests. And therefore the use of technology and how innovative design through the private sector to achieve efficiencies is extremely important. The third lesson that I took out from this are the partnerships, that it's not just the government, it's not just the private sector, but how do you build partnerships even within the private sector between the owners of buildings and the people who lease and who rent the building, the space from them. It's also partnerships between cities. I mean, that was the very interesting part, is that when in their push for efficient energy use, when cities such as Yokohama partner with cities in areas which have excess or surplus electricity, renewable electricity, how can cities partner with each other to make sure that overall you really reach efficient energy distributions? And in that sense, it's not just it's very important for us to make sure that the electrification, use renewable energy, but it's also equally important to reduce the energy use in everyday life in people across the city. And that is again a role of local government, of how do you put in programs which encourage people to use less electricity, to use better appliances, to use better windows and doors and insulation. And it's all of these put together. And that is where we will achieve low carbon cities. And the last lesson that I learned is that we are all learning, and that none of us have truly all the answers. And this is going to be quite a process. So we have to cooperate, we have to exchange knowledge, and we have to tell each other of what went right and what didn't go right, and what lessons we should learn from the things that didn't really work. So with that, thank you very much to both the speakers and to all the participants. And I'll give it back to Victor to close and tell us about the next steps. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much, Barrio, for these great reflections and very crisp summary of the lessons we learned today. With this, we conclude this event, but this is just the start of the low carbon cities knowledge series. We started it today. And the next event of the series will focus on ways to enhancing energy efficient in solid waste management. We will have Japanese and international speakers introducing the approaches and key elements of improving energy efficiency in this area. This next event will take place in the second week of June, probably the week of June 9th. For more details, we will share them in an email to all of you that participated, but also they will be shared in the website. So please stay tuned. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.